So let's go to Farmington, Utah. You guys know how I like my maps. So we're just north of Salt Lake City up here. And if you guys remember, we did a case in Ogden, Utah, where that guy shot that homeless guy. So that's in between Ogden and Salt Lake City. We're in Farmington. And Chase Allen was living his life, driving down the road, being a sovereign citizen. And he starts to get pulled over by the police. The police start following him, and he's driving a blue BMW 3 Series in Farmington, and the police officer was behind him for a few blocks and then initiated the stop, and he just kept rolling for a couple of blocks after the lights got turned on. And we're going to watch the video as soon as I go through this description. And Kfar, stop me if you want to add anything.
Well, I don't know exactly. I don't think you're going to cover it, but most sovereign citizens are like, oh, you illegally pulled me over, yada, yada. In this case, they had a completely legitimate reason to pull him over.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that he had no license plate, or he had a fake license plate on his car. There was no license plate on his car.
And it was like, it wasn't just the private or traveling license plate. It was like written in hieroglyphics or something.
I'll pull up. I looked at a picture of his license plate yesterday. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, I've never seen one look like that before. And I've seen a lot of sovereign citizen license plates.
Well, I found the website it came from, and they don't sell them anymore, but they were also apparently selling like identification cards that they also do not sell anymore. So I'm assuming after this happened, they got in trouble for that.
Yeah, we toasted a guy who ended up taking down his channel, or he ran out of money to keep it up. He was a sovereign citizen living in like a shack in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
Selling, below par dash cams with overpriced memory cards, fake IDs, fake license plates. And he's just like, but they're not real, so don't use them like that. Wink, wink. And it's like, you're going to get people messed up. And then sure as shit, this happened.
So you can see here, this is the license plate he had on his car. It's like the sovereign citizen flag, which I did not know was a thing until yesterday. And then it looks like the presidential seal here as well. So whatever that is, it's not a license plate. It's a piece of cardboard or something. Probably
1,000%.
Yeah, it's a piece of plastic paper that he attached to the back. So completely legitimate stop, by the way. That's the point of it. And he ended up pulling into the post office parking lot, right? And he acted
in itself is hilarious to me.
Yeah, he's going to check if they had a poster 7.
Well, just from the people that I cover, once I heard, he pulled into a post office, I'm just like, of course he did. He had to have pulled into a post office.
He knew right where it was, so
he was trying to get poster 7.
Yeah, that's exactly. Here we go. So he was driving eastbound on State Street, and we will watch the video in a second, but it looks like he makes a left-hand turn, but that is actually him staying on State Street, and he pulls into this post office right here. This is the post office building, and this is the parking lot, I think. Yeah. And it really looked like he's, from the angle of it, I think he's parked actually over here in front of this dance studio. But since Google Maps has done their drive-by or whatever, this post office has gotten bigger, and this parking lot that's right in front is no longer there. So he's uncooperative. He acts like he's not even getting pulled over. He looks surprised that the cop is at his window when it happens. And he only rolls down his window a itty bitty bit, like about this much. And the officer asks him, hey, roll down your window more, dude. And he's like, no, I don't have to, or whatever he says. The cop asked him to identify himself. He refuses to identify himself. And when the cop says, will you please identify yourself or give me your driver's license? He said, I don't answer questions. That wasn't a question. And give me your driver's license is not a question, first of all. The officer informs Chase that he's being detained. And immediately, once the cop says that, he calls in for backup, which is great. And I guess Farmington is a pretty quiet town because 4 more officers show up within minutes. The cop goes back and forth with him about getting ID'd. He says Chase ends up saying that he's under duress. He ends up eventually giving him his passport.
Yep.
Which
If
reminded
not a driver's
me,
license.
reminded me that I need to get my passport renewed. But that's another episode.
Mine expired this year.
Mine expired during COVID. We used to travel all the time pre-COVID, and we just don't get out much anymore. So I didn't even realize that it expired. He says a bunch of like sob sit mumbo jumbo, and he finally hands over the passport. And the funniest line of this whole if you can find humor in somebody getting shot to death by the police, which I do,
I can. Yeah.
He says, "That's not me." He said, the officer looks at the passport and says, "Oh, Mr. Chase Allen." He said, "That's not me. That's a piece of paper plastic." Like,
yeah.
What? They ask him to get out of the car. He doesn't. The cop, one of the officers, I don't think it's the original officer. It's all very hectic with the body cam. Yeah, it's very hectic. But I think it's a different officer ends up reaching in and unlocking his door and opening the car door. And almost immediately you hear an officer yell, "Gun, gun, gun." And they start to back away from the car and they all start shooting him. Like all 5 officers started shooting him. There's one, after they yell ceasefire, one more shot goes off. And I think if you watch closely, that officer, that's the only round that he fired because his gun jammed and he had to reload and then got one shot off and then it was over. So that's how fast it happens. The cops pull him out of the car and immediately begin CPR. So we're going to watch the body cam in full. Here we go. And the audio, as most audio, doesn't start right away. Here we go. Oh.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good, I'm Officer Farmington Police. The reason for the stop today is there's no registration on your vehicle.
I don't need registration.
Alrighty. Davis, Fox 21. Can you have a couple more heading my way? Down?
Why do you need to know that?
I just want to make sure that you're the only one in the vehicle. So here's the deal, man. I'm stopping you because there's no registration on your vehicle, and I'm requesting your identification. Okay? You are detained at this time, and you are not free to leave. Are you going to provide me your identification?
I don't answer questions.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as a no, that you're not going to provide me your identification. Is that the route we're going? Or would you like to provide your identification to me, and we can have a conversation, we can discuss the laws that you're breaking, and then we can go from there.
If you want my identification, you will be under duress, and you accept surety and trusteeship over it. Meaning you will be responsible for any debts that you are trying to incur here.
Okay, so I'm not trying to incur any debts or anything. I'm trying to investigate why your vehicle doesn't have any registration.
1692, you are trying to incur a debt and legal action for something
Okay.
that's not allowed.
I tried to look up the number of like he's rattling off the codes or whatever, and I tried to look them up in Utah code, like their laws, and the numbers that he names doesn't have anything to do with what he's talking about. So I don't know what these numbers are, if they're federal codes or something, but they're not Utah laws.
So in a little bit, he mentioned something. I don't know if it's, oh God, I want to say 18 USC 241 and 242 is normally like the sovereign citizen go-to, which is deprivation of rights and yada, yada, which don't apply at all, but they try to quote it.
Yeah.
I think he tries to quote something similar number-wise to that. And it's like, oh, we can travel. And it's just like,
well, I noticed also a lot of times, just from watching your channel, a lot of times people who have this mindset will rattle off numbers of laws to try to sound smart, but they don't have the numbers correct.
Yeah,
like they say the wrong ones.
Correct. Or they'll try to quote a Supreme Court case that doesn't exist.
Yeah, or a case from another state, they'll cite a Texas law when they're in Oklahoma or something, or Michigan.
What's the frauditors do that too? It's a California law about shining a flashlight into your camera, but it's like, dude, you're in Rhode Island. That has no bearing here.
Yeah, I heard Chili quote one when he was in Las Vegas, I believe, or maybe California. Either way, he was not in. I want to say it was from Alabama or Mississippi, and it was like a Mississippi state law that he was quoting. I'm like, what does that have to do with this? Nothing at all. All right, back to the video, guys.
Okay.
And under
So,
Title 18, Section
here's-
245,
here's the-
traveling is a federally protected activity. in which
I understand what you're saying.
involved in.
I understand what you're saying. And what I'm telling you is that you do not have an option to identify yourself.
I do.
You are lawfully required to identify yourself. So you can provide your identification to me, and we can have a conversation about the laws that you've broken, or you can fail to identify it to me, and we can go that route too. I'm perfectly okay with either way you want to go, but the direction that this encounter goes is 100% in your hands.
Sir, Utah Code, United States Code,
Okay.
is a corporate policy
Okay.
in which you have to be contracted in to be required to follow it. Unless you
Okay.
can provide me a contract with my wet ink signature on it saying that I'm required to follow it,
Okay?
then there is
So do you
nothing
want
I'm
to
obligated
do you want to
do.
identify yourself to me, or do you want to go a different route? Wonderful. Do you have a driver license as well?
I am not giving you jurisdiction.
Okay.
Do not
Hand-
stop. Do not detain. You are not allowed to stop me.
Let me see that.
On your list
I
saying that
didn't
you're
see
not
what you
allowed
just tried to show me. Can you show that to me again? What's this?
This is a passport. It says, do not stay at, do not detain. And if you go on the first page,
Okay.
it says, the United States hereby requests all who may it concern
Okay.
to permit the citizens
Here's what I'm telling you.
of the United States named herein
Here's what I'm telling you.
without delay or hindrance.
Okay.
You are
Will you hand that to me so I can read it? You want me to look at it through this tiny crack in your
I am not
window?
handing it to you.
You're not going to hand it to me?
If I hand this to you, you accept trusteeship and surety, and you are obligated.
Sure, I'll accept trustingship if you just hand me the document so I can identify who you are, because you're required by state law.
I am not
Thank you,
required-
sir.
You guys can see another police officer has already shown up. The officer made the call for backup as soon as he refused to identify himself the first time. So it's been like a minute and a half. There's more cops there, which is great.